Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Trading Triangle. Today it's the 12th of January. Obviously, we're doing this for the week of the 13th of January. How you doing, Kaye?
I'm doing great. Happy Sunday and a great trading week coming up. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Sorry for the delay, everyone. I can't find my normal camera. It won't seem to load. But that's okay. You can still see me. It's better than last week where I was kind of like this the whole time. So we're getting better week by week in January 2025. Obviously, thank you once again for Wolf letting us use the platform. We really appreciate it. We're just a couple of guys as well on the internet looking at charts, giving our perspectives. So it's not financial advice. I think that's all we've got to kind of announce. Oh no, Tuesday. So basically from now on, every Tuesday on 5 p.m. Eastern, I think it is, Kaye. Is that right?
It is, yes.
We'll be going live on our YouTube channel and on X here as well. I do have a banner somewhere that kind of showcases that, but I'll find that a bit later on. So obviously do go ahead and follow both of us. I'm Sean Trade _ and obviously at InvestK, and Nate as well. He's obviously not on the screen with us today, but obviously he'll be with us on Tuesday, which is fantastic. We've missed him a lot. Have you, Kaye?
I have, yes. We have missed our Trading Triangle third leg. Yeah. So it's looking forward to, at least hosting another show with him starting from Tuesday.
Awesome. Right, should we get into the slideshow then, shall we?
Let's do this.
All right. So as mentioned, this is for January 13th all the way to January 17th. Right, I'm just going to that screen. Last week wasn't so wonderful. It was very red. Well, it felt very red. Red. Obviously, you can see on the screen it wasn't too bad. I mean, Apple only down 2%, NVIDIA down 2.9%, Amazon down 1.6%. Tesla was actually up for last week. So there's a few kind of green names kind of popping out there. Everything jumping off the page for UK?
Not much. I think there was a lot more weakness on the semiconductor side, especially with NVIDIA. And a lot of other names also felt there's a lot of weakness in the other names as well. So nothing popping off the chart as much, but when we go to SPY, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think this is just a normal, one of those weeks.
Yeah, just one of those weeks kind of ticking over. Obviously, I've taken a little bit of a different approach to SPY this week. And once again, I have completely forgotten to mention the fact that obviously stick your tickers in the comments. So if you are watching this, stick the tickers in there. We'll get to that kind of after our individual picks. I've got Apple and RIVN today, and I think you've got GitLab and QCOM. Is that correct?
Qualcomm, yep.
Qualcomm, yep. So obviously we'll get through those, and then we'll get through your ticker requests. So do go ahead and stick them in the comments. It gives us a few more ideas as well with our trades. So yeah, interesting week last week. And obviously moving on, we do have a few points of data here. Some key events there in the bottom left corner. We've got PPI this week and CPI, as well as jobless claims. I think that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, respectively.
Exactly.
And the fear and greed index. You want to speak to this, Kaye? Still in fear?
Yeah, still in fear. And the put to call ratio has actually started to inch a little bit, towards, I guess, neutral. We started the year with 0.62. We were 0.65 or 0.67 last week, and now we are 0.71. The big one was the WIX. We were sitting at a 13.8 WIX, and now it's jumped to 19.54 when we ended the week Friday. So you can see that there's a little bit more volatility, coming in. There's also to do the major wildfires happening in California now. Now that does not impact any particular stock per se, however, just a political situation. And don't forget, this is the last week of Biden. January 20th will be next week, which will be a day off. And that's when the inauguration takes place, and we will have officially the new government will take over. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are expecting a bit of a rally going into that as well. So it'd be interesting to see if we get a bit of a bounce this week. Obviously, lots of data points, as we mentioned as well, to kind of propel that perhaps or make it worse. So it'll be a very interesting week for sure. And like you said, the VIX are spiking up a little bit. Interesting to watch that kind of develop this week as well. Good evening, Sebastian. Hope you're doing well. Nice to see you. We also have another comment here from AKC. The market goes as semiconductors go, so it's definitely a bit scary start to 2025. Now, we're only 12 days in. Are you feeling a little bit tense around semiconductors or not so much?
No, I think this was more of a reaction. We saw NVIDIA hitting our all-time high target on Tuesday. That was when the CES event started. And right after that event in the evening, we started seeing a little bit weakness. And the following day was a major sell-off. So it could also be the buy the rumor, sell the news. Again, I think there's going to be a lot more geopolitical news coming out in the next few weeks. So, I mean, I don't disagree with the sentiment here. The 12 days in, and we are already starting off with a shaky start. Hey, but it's the market's going to keep the life interesting. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, SPY is only down 4 or 5%, I think, from all-time highs. So it's not as dramatic as people are making it out to be. I can see the tickers coming through. We've got NBIS, ASAN, WBA, Wolf. I hope you're writing these down, Kaye.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, I have everything. Yeah.
Yeah, keep sticking them in the comments as well if you are watching. Thank you to obviously everyone who is watching. You can also go ahead and subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, which we literally never talk about. But we're going to be doing a little bit more on that channel this year as well. So looking forward to doing that. Moving on, we'll move on to the upcoming earnings, and this is my most exciting part of the week. Earnings are back. I mean, I don't really trade these kind of earnings, but I'm just happy that they're back. Do you trade this type of earnings, the bank earnings, Kaye? Or probably not so much?
No, not much on the bank earnings. I generally would start trading once the tech earnings begin, which probably should be either next week or the following week.
Ooh, turn my light off there by accident. Yeah, no, definitely. I think the week after will be way more interesting. Definitely looking forward to it this season. That's kind of it really for earnings. We'll move on to the first chart of the day, which is SPY. Now, I've taken a bit of a step back this week, and I've gone for a bit of a weekly outlook. You can see actually last week was just not so nice, was it? It's a big red candle, or in my case, yellow candle. Do you see a little bit of a bounce here? I could talk to the chart, but I want to see what your perspectives are straight off the bat.
Is this a weekly or a daily?
This is a weekly chart.
Weekly. Okay, so on the daily chart, we are at the gap fill. So I wouldn't really be surprised that this week we see some additional weakness. But let me also look at the put to call ratio for this week. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, that's right.
So the put to call ratio for this week is also a little bit on the bearish side. We start off the week with 0.9, we go to 1.37, then we go 0.97. Now keep in mind, these are all daily expiration dates. And then on 117, which is the last day, Friday, it's 2.75. Now, the reason it's a little bit more bearish is because we have the CPI and the PPI numbers coming out. And with the job growth still being very strong, which the numbers came out in December, we could see fewer rate cuts, no rate cuts, or even a rate hike. Now, I don't think rate hike would happen because that would throw the market completely off. And considering the new administration one of the things that they really focus on is like the stock market should look good for them, right?
Yeah.
Because they can always call that, hey, our economy is solid and everything is great as long as the stock market is making all-time high. And I think 4 years from now, S&P 500 will be at a higher place from where it is today. So that I think will happen. But I don't think rate increase will happen, but we could get fewer rate cuts or maybe no rate cut for the first half of the year.
So they're pricing on 1 now, aren't they? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it was 3, came down to 2, and now it's only 1.
Yeah, but these things change so much that today what you think will happen will change, because I remember the last year we were thinking of 6 rate cuts. Then in the first half of the year it dropped to 2 rate cuts or 3 rate cuts when the 2024 started. But eventually we did continue to get rate cuts, like 3 or 4 rate cuts we got last year. So these things change.
Yeah, of course, it's data dependent as well. And we've got 2 major data points this week, so that could just really skew it and go either way. So just be careful if you are trading around those kind of time frames. I think we mentioned it was Tuesday and Wednesday, 1 hour before market open. So just be careful if you are holding some trades that you're not too sure about. Obviously, we are here to kind of guide a little bit of risk management, I guess, a little bit of trade and psychology as well. So that's kind of SPY. I have nothing really to add to that. So we'll move on to the QQQ. I've got a little bit more of a line here at 498. I did have a line drawn at 517, but it seems to be kind of blowing through that up and down. So to me, obviously, that's not the biggest support line, in my opinion. So clearly, it kind of disrespected that and kind of moved down a bit further. But anyway, 498 is what I've got. And that, again, this is the weekly chart you're looking at. And you can see the previous resistance back in kind of July of last year, and it kind of played around there as around beginning parts of November as well. We do have the 20 moving average coming up nicely at the same point of this. Could do with a little bit more volume at this level, but that's where the kind of price action kind of, if it does go sideways, it creates the volume, therefore creating that shelf. So maybe if we come down here, go sideways for a little bit and then make another move higher. Another thing that people are looking at is this kind of potential bull flag. So you've got the kind of, imagine a line coming through the bottom candles here, and then another line at the top of the candles, and then obviously kind of playing within that channel like that. I'm trying to do my best with the mouse. I'm not the best with my mouse at the moment. Playing through this kind of channel, and then perhaps maybe we can get back up to that and then break through to the upside. Obviously, that's generally what happens with bull flags. But if not, obviously, I've got 498. I kind of waffled a little bit there. Did you understand what I was kind of getting at there? Okay.
Yeah, and I think you did post on Twitter or X. QQQ, is it a bearish flag or a pendant, right? Something like that. I forgot. Yeah. I mean, it is bearish. QQQ is a little bit more bearish compared to SPY. All the put to call every single day is over 1. So it clearly is a lot more bearish. The expiration 117 is only 1.48 versus SPY was 2.75. So I feel like the last day, Friday, is a lot more bearish versus for SPY as opposed to QQQ. But still, it's bearish. At least it's signaling bearish from a option chain standpoint.
Interesting. We've got Sebastian here as well saying market sentiment is turning bearish. Have a closer look at BTC. If this sells off, the QQQs will follow. The Bitcoin over the weekend has kind of gone a bit choppy, but I think it's kind of pushing up a little bit now. It's back up to 95K. So interesting kind of what Sebastian's saying there, kind of going hand in hand with the QQQ and Bitcoin. Do you ever really see that kind of cooperation? Because I don't really get the kind of joint price action with BTC and QQQ. I don't really anyway.
I think it's the market from what I'm seeing and my perspective is I think it's bearish because we had strong job numbers and you have CPI and PPI coming in. So if the inflation ticks up, because the idea is if you have more jobs, which means people have more money, they will spend more, it will increase inflation. So that is the reason why I think the market is a little bit more bearish. Of course, I think there are not just one single reason. There are many multitudes of reasons that could pull a market down. But I think that the CPI number is the key right now for this week.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Right, so that concludes basically the market overlook. We have a look at SPY and QQQ. I'm sure we'll have a look at a bit more charts around this sort of thing a bit later on. And actually, the next chart for me is Apple. And again, it's the weekly. And you can see it's a kind of bit of a crucial point on the chart here. So as I mentioned, it's the weekly. So we've got a bit of a drag down last week and a bit of a bounce actually at this level here around 235. I've got this line drawn at 237. It seems to have respected that so far. And of course, we've got the trend line kind of coming through underneath as well. The reason I say this is linked to the SPY and QQQ is obviously because it's a big portion of the SPY and QQQ in terms of percentages. So basically, if Apple moves, they move. Not as dramatically as Apple as a singular asset, but obviously as an ETF, it will move kind of in that direction, pulling other stocks up with it. If we don't see a bit of a bounce here, then obviously if we break down below the 20 moving average, I see it getting a little bit nasty, maybe come back down to this kind of 220 level, which if you're thinking about early parts of last year, which is down here, it sounds a bit crazy still, Apple at 220, but these things happen, of course. So yeah, basically just a retest of the prior resistance level and a move higher is what I'm looking for. Whether we get that or not, I'm not too sure. What are your thoughts on Apple, Kaye?
I think Apple has definitely shown weakness, and I don't know if folks got a chance to listen to Mark Zuckerberg over the last 2 days on Joe Rogan's podcast where he was trashing Apple, and it's so funny. The pot calling the kettle black, that's the old saying. But I do think that there are fair points from an Apple standpoint. However, I think Apple's new Apple Intelligence or whatever they call it, right? It did not go I mean, it's too early to say, right? Because they really haven't launched all the features within the phone. And most of the phones have really not gone through the next upgrade cycle. But there's definitely weakness. And I keep calling out that we did have a gap up in Apple. That's about 25% going back to 176. Is it going to happen? Not anytime soon. But if that happens, that will only coincide with when we see some major market pullback, maybe 10%, 15%. So we may not even see that gap fill happening for, I don't know, maybe for a long time. But I think there is still definitely weakness. I would be looking at 220. That is my support line, where I might start to nibble back into Apple or even run some options trade. Right now, it's too high for me to even get into Apple.
So you wouldn't think about this kind of retest potential short-term trade at all? Then
like running a wheel strategy on Apple. Apple hasn't been giving it good premiums, so I've kind of like put Apple on the sidelines. It's more like a long-term investment. But if you want to invest in Apple, I would say I would target a 220, which would be a still decent 7% pullback, because that support line goes all the way to the August of last year.
Yeah, and like you said before, if we do get a really big downturn in the market, and Apple, of course, and that gap up was here 176 all the way back in May of last year. Yeah. And that kind of coincides as well with the 200 moving average if we were to get that. And obviously, this is a very slow moving average, it tends to be. So it'd be kind of around this sort of time, May, June anyway. Just kind of hypothetical reasons, really. Got a couple of questions. Oh, actually, I've got one question. We've got one here from Vlad, I'm going to say. How do you factor in the mass adoption for AI agents to replace the workforce? Maybe this explains the markets being bearish. I'm not so sure that's really taken into account just yet. I'll leave the question up there. Obviously, some people will see it. But what are your thoughts on this one, Kaye? I'm not too sure if that's really a problem just yet. Maybe in 10 years, perhaps, but not yet.
So I think from an investor standpoint, I think you need to keep that in the back of your mind, right? Because that will play out eventually. And to this point, Salesforce launched their Workforce Agent 2.0, which basically is going to help with a lot of, for folks. Let's say if you work in a company, you have softwares, right? So if you want to open a ticket, you will send a ticket to the vendor, and the vendor would generally have support folks who are going to respond to your questions. Now most of those are getting automated, which is actually enabled by AI. So as Salesforce starts to expand further and further, they themselves have mentioned that they would not be hiring any more software engineers, especially for low to mid tiers. And you will see that adoption, going like wildfire, especially in tech companies. Will that happen in financial sector, healthcare sectors? They are generally not as tech advanced as real tech companies. So it will take few years for that adoption. But I think from a long-term perspective, that will definitely play a role. At this point of time, it's too early to call.
Yeah, I agree. And Joseph here says as well, I missed what you thought about SPY. You're going to have to just rewind this stream or head over to the YouTube channel and watch it a bit later on. Some kind of interesting thoughts around SPY I think we had. So that brings the end to my chart of Apple. We're going to move on to RIVN now. And this is a bit of a trade idea for the longer term. And I'm sure you can probably see why already, Kaye. What I'm going to do is actually just move us to one side so you can see the chart a little bit more. You can see on the screen here, obviously, price action kind of playing around this trend line basically since middle part of 2022. So about 2.5 years now. And you can see, obviously, this is the weekly chart as well, lots of resistance kind of hitting around these lines. We had a bit of a poke out, obviously, a couple of weeks ago on the Friday. I think it went up 24%-ish. And obviously, with the market kind of returning back to kind of reversion to the mean, shall we say, RIVN has done so as well. We'll come back down to kind of retest this level of that previous trend line. The reason I like this is kind of basically my strategy. I've got a breakout strategy of kind of normal resistance, kind of horizontal lines, and of course the kind of the trend lines as well coming down. If we can break through that and retest them, that's ideal. The reason I like this, obviously, RIVN is kind of considered to be a little bit of a kind of rival to Tesla. Obviously, not the biggest scale at the moment in terms of Tesla. competing with Tesla, sorry. But it is aiming to kind of beat it on kind of customer experience and product, etc. And obviously that matters to a lot of people, and that's why I like RIVN as a whole. So very simply, kind of an entry hereabouts. Obviously, it's not financial advice, but I like it. I don't have a position in it just yet, but I do like it at these levels. I want to see what happens in the next few days around the market, etc. Because I think that's probably the safest option, and I've been built on that before, shall we say? But yeah, basically, I like this retest of the trend line, and obviously the levels that I'm looking for are 19 to take a little bit of profit, and obviously let it run to kind of 24.50, and then 28 after that. And if it does move on beyond that, obviously I'm talking about months here, not days. Obviously, I will keep the winner running. If that makes sense, and trail up my stop loss accordingly. But yeah, no, it's an interesting one. What are your thoughts on RIVN? Do you like the company? Do you like the trade, perhaps?
Absolutely. I think it's on my watch list for this year. And again, I'm just going to throw out a theory, long-term theory, right? So if the new administration is going to be assumably going to be pro-business, which means that you could see a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the next 4 years, which was very difficult for companies to do in the last 4 years. So is it possible, again, I'm just thinking out loud, is it possible for Amazon to actually buy out RIVN?
Yeah.
Because why it came to my mind is because Tesla has Starlink, right? In the CES event, we saw Amazon launching their own version of Starlink. So they have the Blue Origin, right? So they are also sending satellites out, and they are trying to compete with Tesla Starlink. So what better way to compete with than to actually buy out a company which is already functional, right? Their product is on the road. We know it works. There are buyers. There are there are a lot more RIVN trucks out there as opposed to 2 years back. So is that a possibility? You never know, and we would not know until the day it's announced. That's the best part.
Of course, I like to think the CEO RJ Scaringe of RIVN, he would like to relinquish control, keep control of the business if that was to be a possible opportunity for Amazon. Whether they let that happen or not is another thing. But yeah, Scaringe, I'm not too sure would be looking to sell, and also I don't know any insider business or anything like that. But he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would sell. But it's an interesting point actually. If you stick in the comments, what do you think? Do you reckon Amazon should buy RIVN? Do you think that's a good acquisition for Amazon going forward? I mean, they've already got their vans, so it kind of makes sense in a way. But yeah, no, interesting. Thank you for your feedback there, Kaye. We'll switch back the cameras to the normal one.
Yeah, Ken makes a good point, right? He's mentioning RIVN has a lot of long-term contracts with Amazon and Walmart, safe long-term bet.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Lucid was also a potential, but I think Lucid hasn't been really doing as well. We had Fisker completely gone bankrupt, so there were a lot of startup companies who had potential, but not everybody will make it. Tesla still stands out as one of the most profitable EV car makers out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think just the last point on RIVN as well, if they can secure these loans to obviously build these kind of manufacturing plants, I think that'd be huge for them as well in terms of the production rate. Because the production is probably their only issue, in my opinion. Anyway, let's move on from that. You can catch me on Twitter. I'm releasing a few more kind of financial related threads, and obviously I do chart analysis quite often. I do like to keep on top of that. YouTube, I'll be going live this week on Thursday. Haven't anticipated the time just yet. But obviously you can head over there and subscribe and wait for that live stream. It'll be kind of based around finding opportunities, etc. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, then do check that one out. And TTR, you're probably wondering what that is on the screen. It's my trading community. You can find out the details for that in my link in the bio of X, basically is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to be tweaking that in the next couple of days, and I'm excited around the kind of change. So yeah, I'll discuss that on X, so do obviously go follow me over there. Anyway, moving on, what's your first chart? We've got GitLab, I think, haven't we?
All right, yes, the first one is GitLab. Is it GitLab or Qualcomm? Let me just see. It's GitLab. So this is, I'm really liking what I'm seeing on GitLab, at least from a long swing trade standpoint. And if we just look at the trade from a trade standpoint, you have almost like a 19% upside potential, considering it maintains this zone, right? Is this trend channel. So from the top of the trend, from where the stock is trading right now, that's a 19% upside potential. And the reason I like it, it's from a fair value standpoint. This is not the most cheapest stock available. However, one of the key points for GitLab is that they are offering a very comprehensive solution for DevOps, which is basically the software development side and the IT operations side. So the total addressable market for softwares like these is a much larger one. And I'll probably do a video with much more details in there. But right now, GitLab, for me personally, I think it's hovering at this 60, 55, 65 range for a very, very long time. And if we actually probably get in, we have had nice bounces at 20-day moving average for this stock. So the trade that I'm looking into is actually getting on around this and ride it to the top of the trend channel. And of course, take profits as we go along. But that is the thesis behind this particular trade. It may take a couple of weeks to play out. Really more like a swing trade. What are your thoughts on
this? A bit longer than a couple of weeks? I mean,
yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. But what I'm banking on is when we will have a rush, right? I think, again, this is all assumption based, but I think when the new government comes in, I think we will probably get a bull run for, could be a week, could be a couple of weeks. I think we may be able to take advantage. So I'm probably positioning myself in this trade. And this is, by the way, I'm already in this trade. I actually did open a position at 59, which was it was 59, 59.34 is what my cost basis is. That's what I'm looking to trade in for the upside of 20% on this trade.
Yeah, nice. I've been just looking at this technically as well. I think I brought this one up a few weeks ago around the kind of previous resistance line here. Yeah. So you've got a touch back in whenever that was, because I've got my camera in the way. And then you've got a touch here in September and a touch here kind of middle parts of October. And also we bounced really nicely on that level in mid-December and then again towards the end of December. So I do like that kind of double bottom price action. Yeah, I don't mind an entry here myself either, really. I mean, the RSI is looking good. It's kind of healthy. It's sitting at 50, so it's still nice and central. And yeah, I do really like this one, Kaye. And obviously, everything that you said around the kind of fundamentals of the company and the kind of the thesis of it, I think it makes sense as well. One thing I would say is obviously earnings. Is that a risk for you?
Earnings could be a risk as well for GitLab, but I think they are not reporting earnings anytime soon. Let me tell you when. So they'll report earnings on 3/5. So we still have a couple weeks to go before the earnings come in.
And how would you play the position around that, or would you not worry too much?
So right now I won't worry because there is a lot more up revisions on GitLab. And interestingly, their earnings is whatever they come out with, they are always beating. So they have been beating their earnings top line, bottom line since 2021 October. They haven't missed a single one. So I'm assuming they won't miss the coming one either. They will break the 200 million revenue for the next upcoming quarter. And we have 24 up revisions on that. So we could actually see a retest of the top of the trend line, because if we follow this trend channel, the stock is trading at the bottom of the trend channel. And the goal is to ride it to the top of the trend channel. And if we see a breakout, we let the runners run.
Exactly. And you could actually bring this line up, really. It's not quite touching here. So you could actually bring that line up, and it's even tighter at this level as well. So just a little bit of a perspective there for the watchers watching. Should we move on to the next one, Kaye?
Yes, let's move to the next one. Next one is Qualcomm. And this is a different type of a trade. This is specifically for folks who run wheel strategy. So what is wheel strategy? You sell a put to acquire the stocks, and then you sell covered calls to kind of get rid of the stock, right? So that's pretty much the wheel, and you just keep repeating it. The reason this stock, Qualcomm, is a perfect for the wheel strategy is, you can probably see from the chart pattern, it's trading in a range, it's range bound, and you can probably take advantage on a weekly trade. And generally, if you're doing a wheel strategy, I tend to do weekly trade, especially when I'm not very confident on the long-term outlook. And the long term, when I say maybe 30 days or 60 days out. So for Qualcomm, generally for wheel strategy, what works for me is a 30 delta. You could be a little bit more conservative, like a 25 delta. and pretty much just rinse and repeat. That's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, it's not a strategy I follow because I don't play options too much, but I'm sure the listeners found lots of value in that. I mean, just looking at the basic technical level, I would look to see obviously a break lower or a break higher of this range that you've drawn. Simple as that, really. That's what I'd be looking at.
Yeah. So it will, as the broader semiconductor market picks up, it will pull Qualcomm as well with it. However, in the meantime, you can use this as a wheel strategy stock.
Awesome. All right. Where can we find you then, Kaye?
Yeah, you can find me on X. On X, I pretty much post on a daily basis. On YouTube, I post regular content. I did post my top 5 stocks for 2025. So if you missed, go ahead and check it out. And guess what? I started writing back again on Substack. I had 2 trade ideas that I published on Substack last week. I'll pretty much do the similar this week as well. So I look at a chart. I kind of give you the bearish, bullish, and what's the likely outcome to be. So yeah. Feel free to subscribe there as well.
Awesome. It's about time you started writing again. I missed the articles back in the day.
Yeah.
No, good to see you back with the writing. Awesome. Should we jump into some charts then, Kaye?
Let's do this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Organize this a little bit better. Get it ready. We've got quite a few tickers. Obviously, keep them coming in. I don't know if we've got too many or not, but it's, better, more the merrier, they say. Yeah. In my country, so we'll see. Right, here we go.
So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just switching between screens. I'm getting myself a little bit confused here, but here we go. We've got the charts up and ready.
Okay.
First,
the first one is NBIS.
NBIS, that one.
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
Or N.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's the one.
Yep.
The first one.
Beautiful. So this stock hasn't been around for very long. It came in inception kind of middle parts of November. Looks to be trending upwards so far. Obviously, not enough on the chart for me to really warrant an entry as such, but it seems to be doing quite well. I wonder what they do.
Yeah, so they operate as a technology company that engages in building full stack infrastructure to service the global AI industry. Its business includes an AI-centric cloud platform built for intensive AI workloads. They also include large-scale GPU clusters, cloud platforms, tools, and services for developers.
Interesting.
And it's a company. It was founded in '89, so it's been there, and it's a company based out of Netherlands.
Right. I've got a couple of friends from Netherlands on Twitter, so I might have to ask them about this if they know about it. Dutch, that's the one.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have liked me saying that. Possible kind of possible trendline breakout happening on the chart as we speak. Probably a bit late to enter. Maybe you could possibly get in above this level, but again, it's a bit tricky. So I'll probably wait for this one. It's a general rule around kind of companies coming onto the market, right? 6 months, sit on your hands and see what kind of price action it delivers. I mean, recently, obviously, RIVN's a bit later now. There's about 4 years into inception, but obviously we've had Airbnb is probably a good example. Been on the market a couple of years, obviously waiting for the price action, and now it's kind of moving with the chart from it. But anyway, that's that. NBIS, I don't mind it. I've written it down on my sheet here, so I'll have a little bit more dig into it and just kind of sit on my hands with this one.
All right. Yeah. Next one. We actually have a lot of tickers, so I'm going in the order that I received it. So the next one is Asana. So we'll for those who are requesting for your tickers, we'll get to that as well. So the next one is Asana, ASAN.
Lovely. I'll turn that down. Yeah, it seems to be kind of a bit sold off, really, hasn't it? Since probably 27-ish, all the way down to 19. I know what you're looking at. You're probably looking at this gap fill, aren't you?
There you go. You got me. Yeah. I like this stock. I like this stock precisely for the reason is because I have used the stock. I mean, not the stock, the software, and I know how companies are generally adopting these kind of softwares. So this is another one software. The other one is Monday.com. Those are they are not just project management softwares. They are kind of coming in, especially for smaller companies who don't want to buy a Salesforce for doing their, let's say, CRM function. They don't want to buy a Zendesk for doing their operations functions or ticketing system. They can actually buy software like Asana and Monday, which kind of gives you a full flavor of everything. So a lot of companies are going towards having one platform, and that's where companies like Asana, Monday are really are picking customers in. So they're just not project management software. Keep that in mind from a long-term standpoint.
Oh, I have myself on mute. I like it if it gets back down to kind of $15, $16. Obviously, lots of price action in terms of bouncy range happens there. The actual weekly, this is the weekly chart, the 20-minute average and the 50-minute average about that level. And we've got a bit of volume here as well. And the volume really picks up on the daily. We'll jump into that quickly. You can see on the right side of the screen, the bars, they will load in a second. Yeah, there you go. So we've got lots of volume at these levels as well. So an interesting one to look at if you're looking for a bit of a gap fill in the next couple of weeks, maybe. I mean, this is only a few weeks trading, so it could easily happen in the next coming weeks. Right, what's next?
Next is WBA. I think it's Walgreens.
And I'll just write that one down.
Yeah.
Right. WBA.
Yeah, WBA. Yep.
Oh, bit of a move recently.
I have not heard of this stock in a long time. This used to be one of the favorite stocks of dividend investors.
Yeah, I mean, already you see on the chart at least the resistance here at 200-minute average on the daily chart. So
yeah,
for me, it's a no-go in terms of buying, but perhaps with the market the way it is at the moment, you could possibly short it, at least for the short term.
I wouldn't short, honestly. I would just wait for either a breakout above the 200-day retest and then probably take a position in, or just wait for a rejection, because then you also have a gap right there.
So you're looking at that or that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Next up is WOLD. I've never heard of this. Wolf Speed. Okay.
Oh, Wolf. This one was, speaking of Wolf, on Wolf's platform now, aren't we? This must be his stock. That's kind of selling off, isn't it, really? I mean, you can see the trend, it's negative. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's kind of really gone down.
What do they do, though? Let me see. They are also a semiconductor company, focuses on silicon carbide and gallium nitride technologies in Europe, Hong Kong, China, and rest of Asia Pacific.
I mean, the chart looks very messy on the screen, but you can see the general story. Big moves, big sell-off, big moves, big sell-offs. I'm currently trading at not all-time lows, but basically all-time lows in the last 20 years price action. So
I think the key here for this stock is that it has a almost 30% short interest.
Okay, right. So people are playing it on that then.
Yeah, because in the last 1 year, the stock actually lost 86% of their value.
It's tricky to get. I mean, that whole time it's making lower lows. I don't really like it.
Yeah, Sebastian did talk about did say it's a short float, huge short float, and some good news recently. Yeah, I mean, this kind of a stock, if you're going to trade, shouldn't be your largest position for trade. This, if you want to trade speculative stocks, it should take a smaller position from your portfolio, whether trading or investing, doesn't matter.
Exactly. And there's always a small portion for high risk assets. As there
Next
should be.
is Celsius, CELH.
You like this one, don't you?
Yeah, I actually am I'm already currently in a trade for Celsius. So I'll give you where I'm looking at. So this is more like selling the options and waiting for it to get assigned so I can run a wheel strategy. My entry is 2650. So we haven't achieved that yet. And I'm liking at this spot is because the stock continues to bounce off this 25, 26 level. And let me look at Celsius from a investing standpoint, or what's any news. It still continues to have a buy rating from Wall Street, but I think the general market for drinks have not done very well. So keep that in mind. They did miss their top line, bottom line last time. I think there are a lot of down revisions for upcoming quarter as well. Yeah, so not great news from an investing standpoint, but from a trading standpoint, because this is also kind of a range bound, it's pretty much, from 25 goes to 26, 27, then comes down to 25, 26. So, for real strategy folks, this is a good stock to, get in, get out.
Yeah, I'm not seeing much on the chart apart from obviously people watching. They probably saw me zoom out and stuff, but I've got the zone drawn already by looks of it from 27 to 40. And at the bottom of the zone, looks like we're kind of creating a bit of a base here. But I don't really like the price action off of this trend line that I've kind of just manufactured. And obviously the moving averages as well, kind of rejecting off of both of those. It will have to find some sort of floor and have to push through these levels for me to be interested. But I know a lot of people like this name, understandably. Obviously, there's a lot of hype around it. But I think that's all it is, really. I mean, it is just a drink at the end of the day. It's nothing too special. But yeah.
There was actually a question for you from Brandon 0624. What website software are you using?
Yes. So I'm really bad at looking at the comments sometimes. I kind of get tunnel vision when I get charts up on the screen. But yeah, what website software? This is actually TradingView. It's very good. For me, it's quite cheap, in my opinion, considering how much time I spend on it. You've got to really, if you're looking at investing a piece of software or anything really, you've got to really kind of realize how much time you're spending on it. And obviously for me, Kaye, you know me, I look at charts quite a lot. So for me, it makes a lot of sense overall. So yeah, definitely go check it out. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Next stock is IONQ.
Oh yes, so this one got hit, I think, this week. I think it's a quantum stock.
Yeah, they got hammered, right? Especially after Jensen Huang during the CES said, hey, we are 10, 15 years away from it. And then the next day, I think it was QuantumScape or somebody from the quantum side came out and said, no, Jensen is dead wrong. I saw that comment on CNBC.
Didn't Mark Zuckerberg say the same thing as well? That quantum is nowhere near. Yeah. Lots of chat around quantum. Maybe they're just a bit jealous. But yeah, back to the chart. Obviously, it's kind of looking like it's holding around the 50 moving average, and obviously lots of volume around this level as well. So could be a point to buy, but I mean, for me, it's a bit too risky at these levels. There's obviously a lot of news surrounding this industry as a whole. So I would probably stay away from it. There's much better opportunities out of the market, in my opinion, especially near term opportunities. This one looks a bit too erratic. Would you agree, Kaye, or are you looking to get into it?
No. I'm staying away from quantum stocks. I would bet on semiconductor than quantum, and I'm not saying from any, doesn't mean that quantum stocks cannot go up. It's just that everybody has limited cash to invest or trade. So whichever area that you think is going to give you the most bang for your buck, you should go in that area. I don't know much about quantum computing. And I'm not that interested either, so that's why I don't trade.
I think if it was to set up nicely for me, it'd be the 48.75 line, tops of the gap fill, if it was to. But that's, like I said, I'm not looking to get into this because you can see my lines are all over the place. So not the most concrete entries to be made. Anyway, what's that?
Next up is SMH. I think that's the semiconductor ETF.
It is, yeah. This one looks like it's kind of back into its wedge. I think from what I checked the other day, yeah. Look at that. So it's just back into its wedge after popping out early parts of the week last week. Looking like it might break down, obviously, with the news and the kind of general sentiment in the market. But of course, it's still at this point of support, really. You've got lots of volume on the side. You've got the 2 moving averages and, of course, the previous wedge lines as well. So there's definitely some support there. But obviously, like I said before, the sentiment is not quite there. And I think Sebastian as well is not so confident on SMH. And considering this is my yearly pick, it doesn't look great. I'm sticking with it.
It's too early to call because we saw last year, like when we picked all the 3 stocks, right? And you picked the ETF, it did very well for the first quarter, right? We were sitting at a good profit, and then it just sold off. So I think it's too early to call. It's a yearly pick. We stick with our yearly pick, whether it's down or up, doesn't matter.
Absolutely, yeah. Right, that's kind of it. I've got to say on SMH. Have you got anything to add for this one? Or?
No, nothing much. Actually, we did have a request for NVIDIA. So let's look at NVIDIA because it's in the same space.
Yeah.
And then we'll jump onto the following one. So let's see. NVIDIA. For personally, I think I did make a comment on NVIDIA, I think on X. But I think for now, nothing has changed much on NVIDIA. We still have a good support at 134. It has not broken. It has retested it. Briefly, intraday, not even like it closed above that level. So for now, I think we are in good shape from NVIDIA. And the next support that will come after, if it breaks, that will be 128.07. So $128, let's say. So until we see those breakdowns in those two levels, I don't see any major concern at this point in time. But we did break that 149.57, at least intraday, which was the all-time high for. I mean, this stock just made an all-time high and it got sold off. There was a lot of profit taking, so I'm happy with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting price action, wasn't it, on Wednesday or Tuesday? It must have been. You can see the kind of pattern I was looking at for. It didn't quite turn out, of course, and that's just a testament to obviously technical analysis. It's none of it's perfect. It's a lot of it's circumstantial, news based, but yeah, very very rough day on that day, which I think it was Tuesday, because obviously Thursday was a day off the markets. But yeah, I mean, I don't really like it at this level because it's broken down below the wedge I had. But I've still got a position in it. My stop loss, I think, is still around this sort of level here, 127, 126. So I'm still in the trade. So it kind of makes sense.
And just to wrap it up on NVIDIA, I did a full fundamental and technical analysis on NVIDIA. The video is going to come out tomorrow. So make sure you follow the channel and you will see the full analysis of NVIDIA.
And that is at InvestK on YouTube. That's what he's talking about, not X, on YouTube.
Yeah.
He's putting a lot of work into YouTube this year. I'm looking forward to seeing the results from it as well. What's next, Kaye?
CFLT. I think it's Confluent.
I haven't heard this name for a while. I've probably got some old lines on this one.
Yeah, this is, if I'm not wrong, this is one of the cybersecurity companies.
Yes, I've got an old trend line flowing through the screen there.
It's actually one of the competitors. Yeah, it is a cybersecurity company.
I can already kind of see a Head and Shoulders pattern-ish. It's a bit of a messy Head and Shoulders. We'll leave those lines there, actually. But you've kind of got that there. Kind of breaking down. So maybe a bit of support around this 26 level would be something I look at. Personally, anything that you would look at here?
Yeah, I would look at this gap. You see the gap?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's your bag, isn't it? So the gap is what he's talking about is there. 2370-ish.
Yeah.
But I've got to note down Head and Shoulders there. That's kind of it really on that chart, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not much right now. It doesn't give us a good. There's no entry for me, at least at this point in time. If it continues for a downward trend, I would want this gap fill to complete.
Yeah.
All right.
A bit of limbo.
Next up is Plug.
Oh, this is one of those meme names from back in the day, I believe. This is a hydrogen-powered stock, I believe. So interesting. What are your thoughts on hydrogen? Do you think that's kind of, if they put it in cars, which I think they're looking at doing, it's quite explosive. Explosive, isn't it?
You know, I think what ends up happening is there's a lot of hype about everything, but you know, the real world application, where do you see real world application? So think about the electric vehicles, right? Even till today, electric charging stations cannot compete with the sheer number of gas stations, right? So that trend will take at least a decade in USA to change. And I live in one of the most populated areas, like in the East Coast, and still we don't have as many charging stations as you can see. So how is the hydrogen going to change the place? I mean, it's a lot more hype. If you be on the hype train, get in, make some profit and move on. I don't see this as a long-term play.
No, it's an interesting one. It's not like it makes the vehicles stronger or faster or anything like that.
Yeah, remember that? What was that? Nikola, the truck company, right? They were all about the hydrogen stuff, right? What happened? Toyota was also trying to make an hydrogen car. See, what I'm trying to explain is this, and I talk about with my friends on this particular point. China has already proved the use case for electric vehicles. There's nobody in China, or I shouldn't say nobody, but majority of the people in China are buying electric vehicles. They have already proved the use case electric vehicles work. So I don't know why, yeah, you can throw a hydrogen, you can throw some, new tech in there. The problem is the wider adoption. Yeah, I mean, if 100 people adopt it, that's great. But if the company cannot grow by selling more, then what's the point?
Exactly. And on a technical basis, I like the 250 level. You've got a bit of confluence there. You've got 4 lines of confluence, actually. Got the support resistance line at 250, the 2 moving averages here, and obviously the volume profile on the right. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's a bit too risky for me, I think, just because of where it is and where it's been. It's just a bit too erratic. But if you like that kind of thing, high volatility, then that's my take on the chart there. What's next up, okay?
Next up is EXX, but I'm not sure if I got that name right. I'm trying to find where did I.
I think I saw that was South African from Sebastian, and it is
That's from Sebastian. Yeah.
Always bring up the most random names. I think what was he said? He said it was. Let's have a look. Just want to go back. Here we are. South African and a good dividend.
Yep.
Was the quote towards that. So perhaps more of a dividend kind of suggestion there from Sebastian, which is different. We don't normally talk about dividend stocks on this stream.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think trading, investing, 2 different games, and I think everybody should be, playing both.
Seems to be moving up slowly, nicely over the last kind of 5 to 8 years. So yeah, that's kind of generally what dividend stocks look to do. But yeah, we'll move on to the next one.
Next up is another dividend stock, ExxonMobil, which we have not covered lately. But listen, I think I like ExxonMobil around the $100 mark. I have really not followed the energy sector yet. Let me see if there's any news.
Crude oil dip during the week.
Again, I think if Donald Trump and his campaign promises of drill baby drill, stays intact, you could see these companies actually start to, inch higher because they are going to, rake billions of profits, right? So that's to be seen. No entry yet, but this is something which will make me interested once it starts getting to the $100 level.
Yeah, so the $100 level I've marked out there with the orange line. This is actually the monthly chart. So this goes back quite some time, back down to kind of 2008. So that just kind of level, kind of moving within this kind of channel, I guess you could call it. So it's at the bottom of that channel now. I'll draw the bottom of the channel lines, what I'm talking about. But yeah, kind of at the bottom of the channel there. And then the top of the channel would obviously be there. So interesting time to kind of have a look at this. And obviously, like you said, in terms of logical approach, there's something to think about there.
Okay, next up is PDD. I think it's Pinduoduo.
Yes, this is the Chinese company, isn't it?
Yes. They had a pretty good run. They ran all the way to 163 last year. And then they are now down to 95. I don't follow Chinese companies as closely as maybe you do, since you follow Neo. I know that Pinduoduo is, I think they have a couple of good products, that very popular products in China. They operate an e-commerce platform, right?
It's a bit of a stereotypical. So obviously, I look at trendline breakouts. Generally, this is a bit of a trendline breakdown. So you can see the trendline that's set there came down below it. Obviously, it doesn't really matter where it goes as long as it comes back up and retests it, and it's looking like it's retested and moved a lot lower. So it's a bit of an example of a trendline breakdown, if anyone wanted a bit of an example. But I won't be looking at this stock to trade anytime soon, that's for sure.
So one thing I will say, so generally when the stock is in a downtrend, you want to keep an eye on all the gaps that it has created while running up. So there is actually a gap between 70 or $80 running up all the way to 90, which was from September of 2023.
So here.
Yeah, exactly. So this particular stock is not that far away. It's 95. You are looking at a 14% downside from there onwards to fill the gap.
One thing I would be caution though with the Chinese stocks, obviously they are on two different exchanges, so they do gap up and gap down quite a lot. So I would be careful around Chinese assets if you're looking for gap fills, because they literally happen every day. You can see it on the chart here. There's gap here, gap there, gap there, gap there. There's gaps everywhere. Whereas you look at a US asset, there's a lot less gaps, like a lot less gaps. So yeah.
Also, if you're trading Chinese stocks, one thing that I learned is you have to follow the news events much more closely, because they have, one of the products is Temu, right? That they have. And Temu is also, since they send cheap products from Mexico, with the new administration coming in, they are going to start to tighten that loophole or whatever you want to call it. So that is going to impact Temu directly. Number two, Amazon started to compete against Temu and Shane in a similar cheap product category. So that's also going to put a lot more pressure on the margins for this. So definitely keep an eye on the news cycle. I think news events are more important with Chinese stocks as opposed to anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
We covered NVIDIA, so let's go to Uber. That was the next request.
We'll rattle through these kind of next 5 or 6 and then call it a day for the stream. So I think we hit the hour mark already. My laptop's about to die.
Oh, no. All right, Uber.
It's not on the last leg, so I'll let you know when it's on 5%. Uber. So I think this one is more aimed towards you, because you've covered Uber quite a lot on your channel recently, haven't you?
Yeah. I have covered Uber recently. So if you have not seen the video, you can go back and look at the long-term thesis on the Uber. For now, I think 60 is a very good entry point for this Uber, considering the stock is very undervalued. There was a lot of hype about robo-taxi taking away Uber's business. But I think Uber has a lot bigger moat than a lot of people realize. So I wouldn't be that worried. But I think if you want to get an entry, 60, 61 is a good entry point. The decent volume shelf, and a lot bigger volume shelf coming up around the 70 mark. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, I think. But if you want to get the whole technical analysis and fundamental, you can go check out the video I did last month. It still holds true. The thesis holds true.
Yeah, the people looking at the chart on the screen at the moment, you can see my kind of thesis, kind of looking forward 2025 really is kind of moving up kind of 40% to the top of the channel that we've got. Similar sort of demand zone as you. I've got from 58 to 61. Obviously you said about 61 to 60, so similar sort of area actually.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, if we are to dip back down below them, we have to be careful of this kind of trend line break. I know it's an overly technical view, but of course that's what I do. I look at charts in a technical way, so I would definitely be careful of that. But yeah, Uber, I do like it for 2025 for sure.
Next is SYM, and then NEO, and then we wrap it up. Those were the last two.
Nice. I don't know what I can take out. I might have to take out my microphone because I'm now on 10. That's fine. 10's fine.
Okay, I think we'll be able to wrap it up in two. So SYM and NEO.
So SYM, we've got a bit of a trend line here. It looks like it's kind of setting a bit of a higher low here, especially on the weekly chart. I'm not too sure what they do, but a bit of a higher low at this kind of little red line is actually the 200 moving average on the weekly, which is obviously typically a pretty good support line. So that's not too bad to look at. So it's one to look at for sure. Maybe we could dive down into the daily.
They do. They make products, automation products for warehouses.
Interesting. What a random business.
Yeah. And you know, this is the greatest part about doing live and getting ticker symbols, because you get to hear a lot of variety, which you wouldn't even know. Like for example, this is a perfect example. Companies doing automation in warehouses. Like you think about Amazon has a warehouse, Walmart has a warehouse, but there are so many companies involved there.
So Sebastian says high short interest and great earnings. So that's an interesting one. I like the gap fill as well, actually, on the daily chart, 36.56, which I've drawn on the screen there. I've written that one down. Thank you, Sebastian. Right. Should we stick on the last chart for the day?
Yes, last chart of the day is your call, Neo.
Yeah, so Neo, it's looking like it's breaking down this trend, wedge. As you can see on the screen, I know it's not the greatest detail, but I'm going to leave it on the daily just for now. But you can see here, obviously, it's kind of battled around the trend line on the way down and obviously on the way up as well at the bottom side. It has broken down below this trend line because this trend line is actually set to the weekly chart. So if we jump over to the weekly chart, you can see it kind of poking down below, but that's not a complete break. None of these are a complete break either. So it's still technically within its boundaries. But I have actually drawn something negative around Neo. And you can see actually on the screen, these kind of darkish blue lines. That's a trend-based fib extension drawn downwards. So typically you draw them upwards, and I'll draw it again so people can kind of see what I'm thinking. So we've got a bit of a point here, the lowest point on the chart, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And then we draw it from the highest point. I think, what am I doing? What have I done? I think I'm doing it the wrong way around. I should have just left it on before. Let's just leave it on before. There you go. And then basically what does it? Trajectorizes, which is not a word, the kind of possibilities of it going lower. So I've got 360 here, which is revisited. Obviously, that's kind of cemented as a support line. And then 271. So if we were to break that, then I'm looking at 271, which is low for Neo, but very, very possible. Around the whole company, I think the company's doing absolutely fine. So stock price will follow eventually, in my opinion.
I think we have a couple other requests, but I know that your battery is going to run out. So,
well, if I've won 4%, I'm just going to take my microphone out. You talk for a second while I sort this out.
Sure. So I think we have the next one is Tesla. And let me see what other requests we have. Adobe. I don't know if we can cover all the requests, but let me see if we can cover Tesla. So I'll speak on Tesla while Sean comes back. There are two. The support that you want to track is 378, because that support we had a couple touch points back in December, and most recently in January 1st and 2nd. The resistance continues to be the 427, where we got rejected again, 427.97. So 428 and 378 is the range right now for Tesla. That is currently I'm seeing. Let's see what else we have. Right. Adobe. Okay, you're back.
Oh, good. Yeah, I switched out the microphones. I plugged in the laptop, so we're okay. We can run
over
it as well.
Do you want to cover the remaining tickers, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, might as well. I mean, if you've got the time.
Okay, sure. So let's wrap up the remaining. So next one is, so I covered Tesla. If you want to, just pull up Tesla and tell me your thoughts. Basically, the support that I'm looking at is at 378, and resistance I see 428 on the daily.
Okay.
And because Tesla is pretty much flat right now on the RSI, is 50 or 49. So I know there's too many lines on your chart.
Yeah, it's a trend-based fib extension that does that. Let me just hide it.
Yeah, exactly. I use the Fibonacci. I look at the trend and then I remove it because it's just starting to get a lot more distracting these days.
I only use that one to establish levels beyond like a certain point. So if it's at all-time highs, I'll use that to get the next level. And obviously, if it's making lower lows and it's at all-time lows, I'll make that in inverted way like I did with Neo a second ago. To obviously gain the levels down below. But nothing to really notice here on Tesla for me personally, just because it's in a bit of limbo. If it comes back down to this level of 364, which you might have said, not too sure, that's kind of a point of interest. Obviously, we've got the previous resistance here for that stock. Again, obviously, 50-move average there as well. So if it does come down to there, I would be interested to potentially make a short-term trade.
Yeah. Also keep in mind, right? Elon Musk, the more he's in news, the more there will be impact on the stock, good or bad, doesn't matter. Next up, so we have 3 stocks. We have ACHR, Adobe, and SoundHound, which I know you have been trading. We have a couple comments from Sebastian on SoundHound, so we'll cover that. ACHR is the first one.
Yeah, so we've got that up on the screen. It's Archer Aviation. I'm guessing it's something to do with maybe drones.
Yeah,
Top of my head. But yeah, not looking good actually on the chart recently. But we have created. That's not really a gap actually. We kind of filled it intraday on Friday. But maybe coming down to this moving average, I'd probably have to look at maybe slightly bigger time frame. Nothing really happening there.
They engage in designs, develops, and operates electric vehicles, takeoffs, and landing aircraft for use in urban air mobility.
So drones then.
And they have a good short interest, almost 19%. So
if it can get down to 7, I'd be way more interested just because of that, breakout retest, although it did kind of happen here on the chart. But if it does come back down to 7, I am interested in that one. I'll write that one down. Why not?
Next up is Adobe.
Adobe, maybe you can speak to this one a little bit more.
Well, I did not know Adobe's. If you look at the RSI, actually, this is very, very interesting. RSI is 21, so it's below. It's definitely oversold. And let me see why did it oversell like this? Let's see. Okay. So basically, Deutsche Bank, they said that Adobe has not shown enough evidence of tangible AI monetization. See, this is the problem that you generally are seeing with SaaS companies. So far, writing emails, and this is exactly the point that I made last week on Microsoft, is Microsoft has a very strong presence in AI, but companies are really not adopting writing an email using AI. Anybody can do that. You don't need a co-pilot for it. But I think Adobe really has not done a great job on this one. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this massive drop. But look at that gap down that we had. That's crazy.
It is. Sebastian says nobody needs this company. So that's an interesting take. I think from a purely technical level, when I see the RSI, it's a fairly recent thing as well. When I see the RSI down this low and obviously also equally high, kind of 80, 90, I like to pair it with Bollinger Bands, which sounds ridiculous, but if it does get down to the bottom of this Bollinger Band, which again is a separate video, and the RSI is low, that's typically a good time to enter on a short-term basis, is what I mean. So if we are going to enter this sort of area, for example, we would just play it back to the middle of the Bollinger Band, which in this case would be the yellow line. And then there's quite a lot of lines. Press the one button. There we go.
But
that yellow line there.
What I would say though for Adobe, for folks who have invested in this company and who are long-term investors for Adobe, this could also be an opportunity that you can continue to build on your position. This company is not going to go away. It's a almost $180 billion company.
Well, according to Sebastian, it might do.
But and also that gap down that you have, I think that's a good opportunity. But the problem is we want to see if we see a bounce. The trend has not reversed yet. That's a 33% upside from the current stock price to the gap, right? So if you're just even looking from a trading standpoint, you're looking at $135, upswing on each stock. But I'll wait for the reversal before I make an entry. If you want to play Adobe. All right. Last up, unless you have any thoughts, we can wrap it up with the last talk, that is SoundHound.
No, I don't have any thoughts. I mentioned what I thought on Adobe. SoundHound, I think Sebastian's right. It is kind of coming down to that kind of level of about $12. I think I'd like it to come down a little bit further, but with this massive run up, obviously you do typically get these massive run downs as well, breakdowns, should we call them. So it'd be interesting to see if it kind of levels out, maybe bases out a little bit, and then I'll be a bit interested, maybe set a higher low. But the stock just needs to calm down, in my opinion. But what do you think, Kaye? Obviously, you don't really trade these stocks, but any thoughts on the chart?
No, I think you have a point here. I honestly, like the trend has not reversed yet, right? So I don't want to touch this one. I know this is a hammer, but
yeah, we had the similar sort of hammer back here on December as well.
Yeah,
and it's definitely a point of interest, of course, because you've got all the volume on the right side, as you can see, and those chunkets there. But obviously, this level of 13, 30-ish is the support level in the short term. I mean, you could do that and keep a fairly tight stop loss around $12, but still, it's almost a 10% stop loss. And to me, the way the stock is moving at the moment, it's just not good. The stop loss that big on a stock that moves this much just doesn't make sense to me.
I think that's all. I think we have, do you want to cover two more and we wrap it up, or what the deal is?
Yes.
Okay, so last two. So Roblox and Moderna.
Let's give the people what they want, shall we? Roblox.
I have not heard of Roblox since those meme days, right? But the stock continues to do well.
I don't even know. Is it something to do with kids' entertainment?
Yes. I think they make video games.
I do really like this price action here. I mean, I kind of missed that move, but even on a weekly chart here, you've got lots of resistance points throughout the screen, and then it came up above that, and it came back down and retested it. That is a textbook breakout trade, in my opinion. Just lots of resistance points, moves above it, comes back down and retests that same resistance point, but obviously in a support fashion, and obviously makes another move higher, and you just trail the stop loss behind the 20-minute average, which in this case is the blue line. I kind of rambled on a bit there, but yeah, I don't really like it here. I'd have to come back down to maybe this level, the 55.27, just because that is another point of maybe a little bit lower to 54 actually. So if we can see a couple of resistance points back in the past as well. So yeah, 50. Actually, I've got 53.50 there. I'm going to finalize it by saying 53.50. I know I said a lot of numbers there, but
you should read Sebastian comments, and then you'll I was laughing because of his comments.
Oh yeah, so we've got here, guys. If you don't know Roblox, I can tell you have no kids. I think that's fair. I think that's very, very fair.
That is, yes. Yeah. That's a fair comment. Yes.
Not yet. One day. What's the last stock on the list, then?
Moderna, MRNA.
MRNA. This is one I've not looked at for some time, You
used to trade this?
No, not really, but I haven't looked at it either. I'm not sometimes, generally I kind of look at most stocks in the stock market, but this is not one of them. You can see actually, just on the chart, that it does respect the 200-moving average on a weekly basis. Touch there, and obviously touch the resistance point. Obviously, it's nowhere near there now, but yeah, we'll jump down into the daily. And any thoughts on this stock as a whole, or the healthcare sector as a whole, or not?
Yeah, no, I don't invest in healthcare as much as I should be looking into it. But I think from a trading standpoint, let me see on the option side. I mean, they do give good premiums. Their IV is pretty high.
The volume's increasing in the last couple of months.
Yeah, the volume is also high. Open interest is actually pretty decent on Moderna. So
I don't hate the price action, just while you're looking up that kind of area. I don't hate the price action because it did push up above the 50-moving average. It's come down and retest it. Obviously, with the market the way it's been in the last couple of days, I'm not surprised it's pushed down a little bit lower. What I would like to see is it hold definitely this line I'm about to draw.
So this stock also has a 10% short interest, and it has a hold rating from Wall Street.
We also have a potential bear flag as well. So if we are to break this, it could go even lower. And you could see just a very simple trade, short trade. If you do break that, just down to the lowest lows, and that's 10%. It's not too bad. I prefer other opportunities in the market, but a little bit of feedback there for whoever brought that one up.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for today.
Well, I think that was a really good session, don't you?
I think so. And we had 4K, right?
Yeah, 4K. Obviously, we do appreciate all of you. I am just going to switch the camera out here as well. We had a bit of a malfunction with my microphone, but I did manage to fix that in record time. So that was good. That's good fun to do that. Obviously, next week, I've got this dongle, right? I was just going to really bore the viewers, but I've got this dongle that sits in the side of my laptop. It takes up the power port. So I'm going to have to try and figure that out, maybe get some sort of adapter. But anyway, no one cares about that. Thank you once again for tuning in. Obviously, we had 4.2 people tuning today, which is probably a record high, I think. I'm not too sure. But we just do it for the fun of it. We love charts. We love giving our perspectives, and obviously none of it is financial advice, as been mentioned many, many times. Once again, a huge thank you to Wolf for letting us use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. Any final words, Kaye, for this week?
No, this is going to be the first full week of trading for the month of January, because last week was Jimmy Carter. The day was off. Next week is going to be MLK Day. So I think this is the first full week, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
I think just one final thing as well. We will be streaming on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, which is a new slot for us, and we'll be doing that weekly, and we really, really appreciate it if you tune into that. And obviously Nate will be back as well, so I'm sure a lot of you have missed his face. I know I have, and I'm sure you have as well, Kaye.
Absolutely. So that will be an addition to this session. So this session is not going anywhere. We will continue this session on Sundays. Tuesdays, we're just adding another, I guess, a chit chat for the market to see midweek what's happening.
Yeah, I think the first few weeks will be kind of understanding what the platform, what they kind of want, and obviously we kind of talk to charts anyway. So yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Take care.